shrink this down. There's probably a really great Mac keyboard command to split it half and half automatically, but I don't know that command. Man, can I make that smaller? Sweet. Okay. No. Okay. Although I do want to see the bar. Sorry guys. Technical difficulties. Did I leave the meeting? No, I didn't. I lost my little comment bar though. Where'd it go? Oh, gotcha. Okay, you're back. Okay, so we're back. So we have a body. We're showing this right now basically over here. And how do we know? We can right click and click to inspect and open up our dev tools. And I right clicked right on what I wanted to see, and we have our body here and an H1 destination. Then we have a div with an ID of destination. H2 planet, boom. It's right, right there. So dev tools are your best friend, and I always recommend getting really familiar with these. I can always help you in depth. Message me on Slack. I'm anyone in any group. And so can your TAs, I'm sure. But yeah, so again, this live server. So let's see it in action. So destination, planet, LC101, exclamation point. And you just Command S save it, and boom, see your changes. So it can be really great when you're working on things. And yeah, so back to the exercise. Man, I'm gonna put that guy down there. Okay, so the URL where our planet data is located is at this URL here. Add the code to fetch this URL inside the load event listener. So load function, and it literally gives us the code here. So we can just copy and paste this over. And it wants us to put it inside of our load event listener. So here's our load event listener. Copy and paste this here. This URL is this guy here. The URL where our planet is located is boom, right here. So nothing tricky, just following the instructions. Okay. And before we go on, let me ask, and we only have about 10 more minutes because we have a guest speaker tonight, so we won't get through this whole thing. But let's talk about this. What is this dot then here, guys? The promise after the fetch. Is the dot then, is that the promise? It does something after the fetch completes. The obligation. Keeping promises can be an obligation, huh? Yeah, so it says the dot then is saying fetch this, and then once that promise is returned, then do this. So it's a handler. It's a response handler is what the dot then is really. And then so dot then there's a function, and take that response, and then. Exactly, just like English. But I remember when we first started, I feel like the most popular question in every LC 101 that I teach, the question always is like, well, what's the best code? How can I make my code better? What's the best code? There's no right answer to that. But usually if your code looks like English or whatever language you speak, which is English in most languages' sake, if it looks like English, that's probably the best your code can be. That's a good hint. So fetch this, then do that. That's pretty straightforward. So let's keep going on. Peek at the response returned in the request by adding a print statement inside of the function. Copy the file path of your HTML file and paste it as the URL in your browser. You won't see much on the page yet. Oh, this is a step that we can alleviate because we're using live server. Basically, you could open up this file in Chrome, and it would do the same thing, kind of, basically. But let's peek at the response by adding a print statement inside of the function. So let's console.log response. Team semicolon. Okay. So we go to our, again, let's say I just on my web page, open up my DevTools in Chrome. It's Command Option I. I think LC101 recommends using Firefox a lot too. I think that is the same command though. It definitely has DevTools. I think it's also Command Option I, the keyboard command to open it in Firefox. So here's our response object, and there's a body here, headers. Okay, kind of weird, but we're just taking a peek at what it looks like, right? Let's go back to the instructions before we get too worried. We took a peek, and so use the .json method on your response now to see more of the data in the console. Okay, so what is this .json method doing, guys? Anybody know? Converting it to JSON, maybe. I will point out it's probably doing a lot of things, and you can see, okay, so here we go. It's a readable stream, so yeah, it needs to be converted, but I want to make it clear that you're not just converting this whole response into JSON, so to speak. Like when we do this JSON function, we're probably not going to see like all of this stuff here, because this is all part of the response. We just want the JSON object though, which is usually attached to like the body of the response. It might be called data, whatever, but this readable stream is probably our JSON data. So this JSON function should take that and convert that into JSON, but it's not taking necessarily the whole thing. Let's go check it out. So use the JSON method on your response now to see more of the data in the console. So it gives you the code. It literally gives you the code. So you're our best friend. We have so many best friends in the world of coding, guys. So many. It's my first friends I ever had. And you just copy and paste. My favorite best friend. So taking a look at our function. So we've got our fetch. Go to this URL and fetch this data. Then once we get the response, run this function, and we're going to pass in the response that we just got from this URL. And then on that function, let's call the .json method. And that means let's reach into this response and let's get that readable stream data and let's turn it into JSON. And when that is done, then another function passing in the JSON that we just got, let's console log that. So I'm going to save that, and it just reloaded our page, and I open up our DevTools. Ooh, we have an array. Interesting. Of note, by the way, it just gave us an array. It didn't give us an object with an array in it, so that's how their data stream is set up. But sometimes you'll do this .json function and you might not get an array back. I just want to keep in mind. I feel like keep in mind that it can be flexible what data you get. It could be an array. It could be an object. It could be just a string. In our case, it's an array of objects of different planets. It looks like Tatooine. Nerds. And what data type do you see printed? We saw array, right? So let's keep going for 5 more minutes. Replace the console log with the following to view a portion of the JSON in the app. Typo there. View a portion of the JSON into the app. That doesn't make sense. Either way, let's add this now. Instead of our console, replace our console.log here with this code. Okay, so we created a new variable called destination, and we did our document.getElementById. which is going to grab this div right here with the ID of destination. Sweet. And we're going to change the inner HTML to be planet with, what is this bracket notation again? Why are we using a JSON object? It's an object. Bracket notation. Why are we doing this here, guys? Array. That's right. It's an array. So we're accessing the first object in the array, and we're accessing the name. Does it have a name? I hope it has a name, because if it doesn't have a name, we're going to crash. It does have a name. Tatooine. Nerds. I'm a nerd. And so let's save our code here. Let's see what happens. Boom. So there it is. Moving forward, refresh the page to see some new data. Worked well. Play around by changing the index number. We only have a few more minutes, so maybe we'll just play around for a few minutes. So let's look at our objects here. Oh, I'm not console logging it anymore. Womp womp. And that's not going to work because we actually want the JSON. Got an array here. Okay. So we reached into our first object in the array here, and we grabbed the name, Tatooine, and then we added it to the HTML. Sweet. What if we wanted to, I'm totally winging this here. What if we wanted to, oh, maybe we don't have time. Maybe we should just call it here. We're going to call it here because we don't have enough time. I was so worried about actually finishing early, because we're actually closer than you think to being done. But I was so worried. But I don't want to get halfway through something because I'm really, really excited about our guest speaker tonight. So maybe we'll, oh, Nick, I have time. Oh, okay. Well, let's do it. Let's just keep going with the exercise then, because sounds good, Nick. So we were here. So once just play around. Does the planet name change? Can you change the planet's property being printed? You bet we can. Just like accessing normal objects, instead of saying planet Tatooine, I want to do something else. I want to see the star that it's orbiting. And we'll say, oops, not that. We'll say here, I want to say orbiting stars. That it does. Tattoo 1 and Tattoo 2, as you can see right here. So let's save this. Boom. Orbiting stars Tattoo 1, Tattoo 2. And all we did was change this value from what was on the object, just like any other JavaScript object, right, guys? So let's move forward though. So we played around a little bit. Yeah, this is so fun, guys. This is like, I always say to my class and my group, you know, you guys have so much power from what you've learned so far in LC 101, and you guys are just getting started. But the reality is that you guys have so many tools, more than you know, to make real world applications. You're so close, and it's so exciting to me. I just am so excited for you guys. Moving forward though, now what happens if we move those last lines we added to outside and after the fetch request? So it's saying if we move those last lines we added, so these lines here, 11 and 12, is what I would guess it's meaning. What if we moved that outside and after the fetch request? So we've got, and VS Code will help you. So outside of this fetch request, basically, I think it wants you to take these, and we'll just, oops, cut them. And it wants to put them outside. Since JSON hasn't been defined outside of the response.json method yet, in order to move the template literal that uses the JSON variable, we'll need to also initiate it outside the function call. So what that means, we'll also need, let's also put our print statement back so we can verify that our fetch works. So we already did that because we were taking a peek at it to see what we could play with. But here's what it's saying. We have, and it gives you the code again. It makes it so really easy. And we're going to initialize JSON as an array because we know that we're getting back that array because we've seen that. And well, let's see what happens before we do this, just for fun. For funsies. Let's see what happens. Uh-oh. Uncaught reference error. JSON is not defined. Okay. So I guess I'll speed up. We're getting a reference error JSON is not defined. Why? Well, it says here that it's happening on line 16. So our DevTools are our best friend, more best friends, guys. So HTML, exercise HTML, line 16, support line 16. It's saying JSON's not defined. This isn't defined. And as a quick reminder, it's because of scope, right? So we have a function up here, and if we create a variable inside of a function, can other things outside of that function access that variable? Nope. That's right. They cannot. So, as our book told us, what we need to do is we need to, and we can look right here, window, we can just set JSON equals that. And let's see what happens now. Still getting JSON is not defined. Let's look a little closer. Our book says we can tell our fetch works because the JSON array is printed to the console. However, we're still seeing an error related to the template literal using JSON 0.name, and we are, right? We're still getting that reference error, even though we initialized the variable outside of the function scope. This error because of the asynchronous nature of JavaScript. Although we now have JSON defined outside of the fetch request at the point in time that we seek it for the template literal, we haven't received that JSON data. Uh-oh. So it's that promise issue, right, guys? Remember how we talked about the whole purpose of promises? So our computer code runs so fast that if we try from top to bottom, if we make a fetch call, we wait for a response, code 100 lines below that has probably already tried to run. And so JSON's not there yet because it tried to do this before our response got back. Yeah, it's not saved yet. Exactly. So somehow we would need to wait until we have saved that, till that response has gotten back and handled that promise before we use this. And the rest of the exercise walks you through it. We're really close. But our guest speaker is here, so I want to turn over to Nick. But before I do, I will say that we are going to go over the studio tonight at regular time. So we'll meet back here and dig into that. Again, I did share this whole session, so we'll have this uploaded. And if you guys have any questions or anything, feel free to reach out to me or your TAs. And yeah, so I'll turn it over to Nick now. Maybe. Oh, shoot. He's trapped. You know, I don't know if I can. I'm not even co-host, I think. So, why can't I? Maybe I am co-host somehow. Awesome. Oh, there we go.
Hey, it works. It works.
Okay.
It works. Here. I was muted. Hey everyone. Good to see you all. So, tonight, as Jade was saying, I'm very excited to have a speaker that I think both Jade and I personally know pretty well through the last Burgess class, and who also has just been a great part of the Launch Code fam for a while. So Tracy Cannon was originally actually part of, and she'll go through her whole story, but was originally part of one of our earlier education programs, and then dropped out and came back for when by that time we had 3 units. She rejoined as part of Unit 3 for our last Burgess class that we ran about a year ago, and is now at MasterCard. So has kind of had a winding path through this course. So very excited for her. So Tracy, what I'll do is I will unmute you quick. Looks like you actually were already able to unmute yourself. So welcome. Great to have you here, Tracy.
Hi, Nick. Hi, Jade. Hi, everybody. I'm glad to be here. So Nick was explaining kind of my route. And let me say it was very interesting. I did start with an earlier class in 2018, actually. And just toward the very end, down to the last 6 weeks, I had some major surgery, had to stop. Then I came back and I had a broken ankle. I kid you not, these things are really true. And so I was wondering how I could get back to the program because I really wanted to finish. I was actually switching gears in my career, and just the thought of getting that close to the end of the program and not finishing, I was trying to figure out how I could jump back in without starting at the beginning. And literally within a few days of me wondering that, and I must have asked the question out loud into the atmosphere because I heard from Nick by email. And Nick was telling me about the program that was an opportunity for veterans in O'Fallon, Illinois. I was so glad to hear about that opportunity, so I jumped in. And no more mishaps, no more accidents and incidents, and I was able to finish that program. I learned a lot. I learned enough to kind of have the courage to go ahead and switch gears in my career. I had an educational background of public policy research, teaching in a couple universities as an adjunct, working as data director in a couple of school districts. But it kind of was not getting me the satisfaction that I felt I wanted in my career. So I was switching gears to try Lunch Code. And so after finishing the program, which was amazing, I went through the next phase of it, which is liftoff. And through liftoff, I began to connect with major employers like MasterCard. And after starting with MasterCard as an apprentice, I am a regular, full-fledged employee doing U.S. product delivery. So I'm in a customer-facing position. It has been very exciting. A lot to learn, but it has been very, very rewarding. So I would kind of like to hear from a couple of you kind of what brought you to Launch Code, because for different people, it's different things. You know, some people are completely changing a career. Some people are just kind of adding another focus to what they already know. So I'd like to hear, if you wouldn't mind, from one or two of you, what brought you to Launch Code.
And everybody, you all can unmute yourself. I just gave you privileges for it. So the one or two people, feel free to unmute yourselves.
Anybody, don't be afraid.
Don't all go at once.
Yeah.
I'll go.
Okay, go ahead.
I went to a music school on the East Coast. Then I came to St. Louis to work for, basically I worked for a music company randomly. And then I the true story is I was just in a lot of debt, and I wanted to be able to follow my passions. Yeah, I went to Berkeley. Yeah. And there was no way to chase the dream with $0. And especially with the student loans like impending coming in, it was scary. And I was really lucky that I had seen like an email somewhere, something about launch code, and it was like in the back of my mind. And then I started looking into it, and it just seemed too good to be true, right? It was like this free education program that said that if I started it and I completed it, that I could get a job in tech making like a crazy amount of money compared to like what I could do with no degree, whatever. And it was like, that seems a little like crazy, right? But I ended up doing it, and I already had an interest in tech. I've always been into tech and stuff, and I'm kind of interested in coding, definitely. But it just seemed too good to be true, and I'm one of the thousands of walking examples that it's not too good to be true, and that when you come in here and you work hard and you make friendships and have a team and you grow, and next thing you know, you're living a killer career. And literally at 3 years ago, before I did LC 101, I like had to sell like everything I owned to make rent. Like I was living paycheck to paycheck, barely getting by. And then now I'm making like a crazy amount of money. I work fully remote. I'm in Vail, Colorado right now. I can do my job. I go see my folks and go see my family, and I can go back, and it's just, the lifestyle is insane. And I spent $0 getting the education to do this, which is crazy. But it did take hard work to get there, for sure.
Yeah, lots of hard work, but it's well worth it. I see a face that I recognize, Benita Higgins. Hi, Benita. Benita and I were at UMSL at the same time. So I was the director of a program evaluation